Greetings guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette and this is my channel, Evolve with Monette. For those of you that are new here, I am a professional intuitive empath and we are in the throes of evolution today. I have something that I want to share with you. And did I say I was a professional intuitive empath? I may have. I'm having some excuse me guys, so weird inner ear stuff, so I'm hearing weird echoes. I want to talk to you today regarding one of the things that's kind of controversial in the empath community, and it is the 48 laws of power. The 48 laws of power. This book right here causes quite the stir, and the reason that it causes quite the stir is because it has been referred to as the Narcissist Handbook. Now, I stumbled upon Robert Greene's work many years ago when I was in a cult, and it was funny because I had his book The Art of Seduction, and I had this book as well that I had picked up. I worked at a library, and so I had picked them up and they come across, and my angels definitely, even though I wasn't fully aware of working with my angels or understanding all of that at the time, they definitely were trying to give me the one up. And what happened is the cult leader's secondhand guy was dispatched to talk to me about my reading literature and choices because they felt that it was demonic and evil that I would read these books, which is so funny because the introduction that I had to the cult leader was him discussing with me Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And if you know Robert Greene, he's a fan. In fact, the 48th law of kind of like formlessness is adapted from advice from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, that book, if you're familiar with it. In any case, so my cult leader was very abreast of how to do psychological warfare and studied it and recommended it to me when I was talking to him in a vulnerable moment about a breakup that I was having. And so he taught me some of the things that happens when people were once allies and they have to then morph into enemies, and how we will shift the dynamic in order to be self-protective. And these were tenets that were learned from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Now, when they see me with this book, they think, ah, Diablo, but I've been ready for this my whole life. So I was prepared, but it did stop my reading because at the time I was still trying to go along to get along, but I was like, there must be something good in it. Well, now that I know and have studied this years later, I understand that they were using all of the tactics on the cult and everybody in the facilities that they owned, and with their friendships and with their wives and with their kids and you name it. So he didn't want me to read his handbook specifically. Now I understand why. However, I have been really called by my angels to teach it to you. And you're like, Mona, we don't need that. That's Diablo's handbook. No, it's not exactly the Satanist Bible. It is actually something that you need. And let me tell you why you need empath. Because as a rule of thumb, we are incredibly naive. And it doesn't matter what age we are, we have the naivete of the beautiful unicorn children and little star seeds that we are. Now, as we develop and as life goes on, we do develop levels of shrewdness, and we become perspicacious enough to understand and be, like inwardly focused, and actually paying attention to what our thoughts are and the motivations of people. Any bout with the narcissist will cause you to develop that internal reflection and external reflection as to the nature of people and their infinite toxicity. So we become experts in a way on people's shadows and how they move and work. But I think by going down some of the 48 laws of power, and maybe even all of them if I'm called to, we will be teaching and educating ourselves on how to manage and navigate these very manipulative people that you run into in the world. Not everyone is a malignant narcissist, and not everyone is a covert narcissist, and not everyone is just merely passive aggressive. There are all stripes. It takes all kinds, and we will encounter them. These help you to understand the ways in which to navigate, because even as we begin, the first law is not about manipulation, but it is is about understanding your position. And I think that in order for us empaths to truly evolve, we need to have a level of understanding about our shadow side. And this book specifically delves into the shadow side and what it looks like and how other people think. One of the things that I love that we'll cover in here is to understand that, let's say, every boss you've ever had is insecure. Now, any of you guys can be like, yeah, I can tell you that. Well, clearly they were ridiculous and XYZ, pardon me. So you could say, I could tell you that all of my bosses were insecure. But to understand that they are always looking out, seeking approval, but also seeking to see how you're going to judge them, helps you to navigate the space with them much better. They do not necessarily want their ass kissed, and they do not necessarily want yes men. They want respect. And that's one of the things that you learn when you delve into human work and human nature and human design. We're going to be talking about human design coming up here too as well. So let's talk about the first law of power of the 48 laws of power. And I think it is the most important. Everything has to start somewhere. And I feel like there's a reason that Robert started us out here at number 1. The first law of the 48 laws of power is never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far into displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire fear and insecurity. Meaning, you will inspire fear and insecurity if you move in the direction of letting someone know exactly what your level of talent is. Okay, so let's talk about this here. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and they will attain the heights of power. I love this here because one of the things that happens is we empaths are usually pretty good at a lot of things. We go into things and we dominate in our own way. We have some majestic energy that's helping us to do that. We have some angelic energy, or let's say we just happen to have an aptitude. We're well practiced, we are studied, and we're trying to make our way into the world. So we may not dim our light. Now, a lot of us live a lot of time dimming our light, but then we get to a certain point where we're like, okay, well, I dimmed it for so long, I'm not going to dim it anymore. I'm going to tell you a story, if I can, for each of the laws, and however it may have applied to me or someone in my life that I've noticed. I had a thing happen recently. You guys know that I told you I was out in Boise. I was contracted to work for the #1 insurance company. It was a great opportunity. It was great. Everything was great. I went there, but I understood that the executive who hired me has an ego. And so part of the stipulation of the package that we worked up was that I was going to do the readings and I was going to do some spiritual auditing, let's say, regarding some of the people that were underneath her, which is approximately 300 plus people, and whoever came to read with me. And we're going to see how we could better accentuate performance and things of that nature. But beyond that, I was also going to do a reading with that executive. In that reading and in my exchanges with that executive, I understood my position. She was hiring me. She's not my master in the field of psychic work and metaphysics, but I still understood my role as I was being hired by somebody. So I played to that energy. Does that mean that it was terrible? Does that mean that it was manipulative? No, it means I understood my position. I understood that in our reading that there would be references that would need to be made if I felt called to channel it, so that she can understand her place and the fact that her ability to strategize was seen and recognized. That's how that went well. So that's an example of never outshining the master. Even though she was not my master regarding my actual work and my aptitude, she was my master regarding being the hiring personality who was pretty head honchoed and pretty big wigged, and I knew that I needed to manage our interactions in a certain way, especially when upon us doing our debriefing, she's giving me feedback as to what she overheard in restroom stalls or what people directly ran across the floor of the conference room to tell her after our readings a few effusively saying, we love this person, she's fantastic, how did she know, or whatever. So I knew, even in that moment, understanding the 48th, or excuse me, the first law in the 48 laws of power, that I had to downplay. That wasn't to hide my light. It was already clearly established that my reputation, my energy, and my readings were what they were. They speak for themselves. However, and also other people spoke for them. Reputation is everything. That's the 8th law, I believe. Protect it. Your reputation is everything. Protect it ferociously. I feel called to like jump there real quickly, and then I'm going to go back to the negative when I have not heeded that first law in the 48th law of power. All right, let's see here. And it also ties into this conference. No, that's not the 8th law. Where's the reputation one? And watch me not be able to find it. Okay, it's the 5th law, excuse me. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. We will get into that. But I knew that my reputation for being good at what I did would speak for itself, no matter what nerves we have or whatever. Like, I've catered things, I've done all kinds of various creative projects, I've painted murals, I've written books, and every time I have an offering that I birth to the world, I'm nervous about it, like anybody would be, right? You want to make sure it's right, you want to make sure it's exemplary, you want to make sure it's going to be memorable. So even my own work, reading for people, is no different, right? But I was not, even though I was sought out and hired from this executive because I had previously read for her, I absolutely, to a certain level, understanding that first law of the 48 laws of power, understanding that people that ascend to the position that she is in are often on the sociopathic scale. Not to say she's a sociopath, but there are high levels of narcissism and sociopathy regarding being in the heights of corporate America. I think anybody that's living and breathing can attest to that, right? But there are also statistics that back that up as well, though I do not have those on hand. However, I understand the personality type that I'm dealing with there, right? That is not to say that I do not have an ego, just like we all do. So that's the positive of that. I understood what I was dealing with, and as she came and told me about how people said this and they would like to have me back and how did I know and all that stuff, I was demure. I downplayed, and I was like, oh, the wisdom of you to even hire me. And I meant that, but I also played to my strength and understanding the strategy of that law. If I wanted that invitation again, 2 things had to happen. My reputation had to speak for itself, and I had to be what I said I was, and I had to be worth what I said I was worth. And 2, I had to do exactly what I did, which was hobnob a little bit with those executives, because they rolled out the red carpet. They were incredible, fantastic. Bottles of champagne were sent to the room. Hockey ticket games were extended. Dinners, masquerade balls. It was lovely. They brought me right in. They hired me for a grouping of hours and treated me to a week of red carpet magic. And yeah, I worked a few times, right? So in any case, here's the thing. I understood that she was the master in that situation. Again, not the master of what I do, but the master in the situation regarding the power dynamic. And I didn't care what they all said to her. When I was in front of her, I very much said, oh no, but it was your wisdom. Our conversation and our debriefing ended with her saying, I know you don't hear this and you don't realize what you're doing, but you're in your calling. And I see this and it's blessed and I'm grateful. And you're really good at what you do. I am grateful to have heard that. I received that. But the reason that a master or a person in a position of power said it to me, yes, I had to show and prove. But it's because I left her feeling very secure. I left her not feeling triggered by my certain level of prowess, even though we are working in totally different fields. And I reassured her that I was grateful for the opportunity. Never outshine the master. Now, let's talk about how that can go left when you do it, empath, okay? So, same conference, second verse, different than the first. Same conference. I have clients that I work with. I have long-standing clients. I have clients that are regulars that work with me 2 times a week or more, right? I have a client that is a high-profile client. They are wicked smart, and they're one of the top 20, I will say, of something in the country. Okay, so they are wicked, wicked, wicked smart. And in any case, I manage that client. What did I just say about the high levels of sociopathy and narcissism to any degree, even if it's not malignant narcissism? That happens when you're working with very wealthy people. I have some wealthy clients, and very celebrity people, that too. They have some entitlement, right? They have some yes men around them. They get to be in a bubble, a cosmic bubble. The reason that people enjoy readings with me is because it doesn't matter how high you are in the bubble or how low you are in the bubble. If we're talking about class systems, essentially, I have no problem popping the bubble if I'm guided to, but I also will hug, love, and coddle you to a certain degree if I feel called to. I'm very much Mrs. Huxtable. I know it's taboo to say that, but I'm very much that energy of like nurturing strength. Like that's how I read. That's my reading style, is to make sure that I'm connecting with you, but that you're doing your work too. And if you're on some bullshit, I'm going to tell you that part, right? Now, the first law of the 48 laws of power still applies here though. And here's how I handled it wrong. Oh yes, you're going to tell us what you did wrong? Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a client, and instead of being quite vague about like, I've got a thing, I've got to travel for work, and I've got a thing coming up and whatever, I was very excited. The standing client and I had our reading, and it was not minutes after I had been initially booked for this thing. So I was still effusive and bubbly and hadn't had the debriefing with my bestie, and hadn't had a chance to tell anybody in my life that this had happened. So she got the first wave of my energy. So I was excited. Now, I wasn't babbling on, it's her reading, but I was giving her the heads up. Next week, or in the coming weeks, I will be traveling and I will be gone for a week. Because we read 2 times a week, and because of her sign as well, she is a Leo, so I know that intimately. She expects a level of concierge service, truly, and that's what she gets in her life. And she is wealthy enough to purchase that, absolutely, above and beyond. Only shops in Chanel and all the best of all of the stores, and has all of the personal shopping, and has a full fit if it's not done right? So I know her personality type. I've been working with her for years, but I told her about this thing. However, I prioritize our readings. I prioritize her time. I prioritize her energy. But in that moment, she did not feel prioritized. And you say, well, Mona, that's silly. That's like a quick little thing. Like, couldn't she be happy for you? Oh, well, she said she was, but let's go full circle. And I'll tell you how I messed up that first law of the 48 laws of power. I let the person who is in the position of dominance, if they're being the person that is the client that I work for, right? And I let my ego, I let my ancestry, hey dad, hey, slip in, and I was myself. I was proud of myself, but also it wasn't that I was just like bombastically like, isn't this amazing? All I was doing was telling her I'm going to not be available at the exact times. We can do earlier readings, or we can move it to this time. And that happens. Life happens, and my life is really interesting as of the last couple of years with all my medical stuff. So my clients are incredibly patient. For any clients watching, I love you guys. You guys have been amazing. I travel a lot. I work from everywhere I'm at. Tia, we've read from Lake Michigan. Ms. Laura, everybody, y'all know I'm working and reading. We've been in the airport, everybody. Y'all know how I do. So I'm very much like on the go and on the move, because this is the life that I asked for, and I'm so grateful for a collective that supports it. But in this case, this person considered herself a master, and was, because what happened was, when we were not able to meet, she kind of like spiraled out. And the way that went was her kind of writing me and telling me that she wishes me well with my career, my little career. Now, this is a person who has said to me, you're the best. I've been working with people for years. You're the person. And she's paid me at a premium to understand that as well, and to secure me as her personal reader 2 times a week, like without rain or sun or fail, from ICU, from all of the things. So I know that she appreciates my work. But what happened was her knowing that I was contracted, because she prides herself on number ones, and that's why I mentioned her ranking in the country for her specific profession, because as a Leo, that matters to her. And I get it, because I like to eat at the best restaurant in the world, or I like to eat, or I like to go to the best like experience, or have a 5-star rated thing. So that's a thing for Leos. We kind of like a little bit of panache, and if we're going to join a gym, we're going to get a personal trainer versus just getting the regular package, right? So I understood what I was supposed to provide in our implicit, maybe unspoken agreement, which is that I was to help facilitate an ego stroking for certain. Be a reader for sure, and the reason she likes me is because I don't always just agree and kiss butt, but I absolutely hold her accountable. But also, I'm doing it with this delicate understanding very much of these 48 laws. So that's how I had to work with it. But what I did was I slipped, and I let her know that I am esteemed as great in this regard. And she's known it in other areas and other things. And I imagine that it started to get her little energy to boil, because it means that I am not just hers to have. And it means that I am excelling at something. And for a person who prides herself on her list, that was going to be a problem. And that was a problem that could cause us to part ways if it wasn't handled correctly. Do you guys see how that works? Because her ego was hurt that someone else wanted to solicit me and was fully capable of paying me above and beyond, or whatever it was that I was asking for, and that I was not going to prioritize our interactions at that moment. To her, even though she would not probably wrap her brain around it this way, I had outshined the master. And it was a huge big deal. It left me very frazzled. And I remember saying that to my friend as the day was beginning, and I was dealing with that. And she was like, what are you frazzled about? Like, not understanding contextually how huge of a client this was for me, but also how delicately I had to balance it. No one could understand that, because it's not something that I would explain. I was just in my emotions of like, how do I manage this right now? Because I know what this means, and I know what it also means to her. And it felt very much like dealing with like a breakup. It's really interesting, because even though obviously it's totally platonic and totally above board and professional, there is that energy of a client that gets into that mode. If you begin to outshine the master, you will have to pursue and then chase the master. And I had to ask my ego, I had to ask my angels, and I had to ask my soul, what's the lesson here? Do I chase and pursue the master? Do I release this? Do I get into my dad's bag and tell her F off because you can't buy me? Like, that's also a part of my DNA. I'm very, very in alignment with understanding that I am not to be purchased, because God always predicted to me that my life would only incrementally grow, and that I would have opportunities where very wealthy people would try, and they have, and they have, and they have. And so I have always had to understand that I am not for sale. I have had people offer to do my body. That is a real thing. If I would be just their personal reader. That's another thing to understand about masters, is they will always have a person that is a confidant or an advisor. Astrologers and people of that nature were huge for all presidents and kings. It is just now in the latest, like the last 20 years, that it's been like kind of not looked on, and now it's like a huge big thing again. But forever and ever this was a thing. So this makes people that are wealthy actually feel quite comfortable to have a person in my position that does what I do be a confidant to them, but they want it to be just for them. You understand? And so by letting her know that I had a bigger opportunity than she esteemed herself to be, the offense was taken, and it spiraled out into all of this nonsense. If you guys watch my video about spinning the block, and Momo and I talked about skirt, it spiraled out into all of that nonsense, which was unfortunate. But when I identified the root of it, and I knew that I wasn't supposed to chase, and I wasn't supposed to exactly get into my dad's bag and be a jerk, I realized that the lesson of it was you needed to see what the other side was. You just had a brilliant example of handling the first law of the 48 laws of power by managing that executive and letting her know she was in fact the master, which granted me entree and invitation, which for my human design as a projector, we'll talk about that soon, but I'm a projector in human design. So an invitation is exactly what I need in order to facilitate the best teaching and the best connection with people. In human design, projectors need to be invited. Okay, that's a huge, super big deal. So if you know a projector or you study human design, invitations matter. So I facilitated that by playing to her strengths and not playing up my weaknesses, but definitely being demure and genuflecting, because I understood my position and I understand that law of power. Does that make sense, guys? All right. back to the bad side of it, or the not so great side of it, which is a side that I'm challenged with all the time. Again, when you have wealthy clients, this will be a thing. And not every client is wealthy, y'all. That's not a thing, and it's not a requirement. That has just been, you know, my lot in life, and apparently it will be continued, and I have been tested in that way. The reason that that relationship went sour with that client is because there was a myriad of reasons, but one of the biggest factors that I ascertained is that my hat was tipped, that someone else esteemed me as great, and that I was sought after, and she knew it, and it was going to impede on her time, and how dare I? So I had to be punished. Now, punished is relative. Punished, you know, we came to our definitely conversations and understandings and all the rest of it, but it did leave me with, do you part ways at this point, or do you salvage this? Because I could have. Because any master in that position, and here's how you salvage that: if a master, if you've outshone them, there is some ass kissing that would have to happen. And I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I decided I didn't want to do that. I decided I would take the lesson and take the L and understand. I just learned a huge lesson about outshining a master, even inadvertently. Even though she is not a master in my field, she is a master in her field. She is one of the top 20 in the country and has been that for years and years. She's brilliant. However, I outshone her, not even in her field again, more about the fact that I would even not be available at her beck and call. And she was insulted by that. And I knew that we were not going to be able to reset, because in my own right, I have worked on mastering my skill. So when master to master happens, and even though I was in the subjugated position and she was my client, yes, even that, there was a lesson. And I had to figure that out momentarily, instantaneously, while being frazzled, and figure out, can I afford to lose this in every way, financially, emotionally, energetically? Will this be replaced financially, emotionally, energetically? Is she going to get the lesson if I don't spell it out for her? And why did I get this lesson at this time? It also happened in Mercury retrograde, when we know things can go left. And just to give you a little bit of understanding, she had spiraled out because I was in a place where I had no reception. And so I literally didn't see her text, and I couldn't respond back to her. And let me tell y'all, if you have any Leos in your life, that is a no-no. It's not about you don't answer their text. It's about if they feel like they're being blown off, like this is the greatest sin for a Leo. So especially if they're not like evolved and they're very much in their own narcissism. I mean, we all can be a bit narcissistic to a degree. And I'm not just saying Leos, I'm saying humanity can be narcissistic to a degree. But when they are not in an evolved state, then that is like the greatest sin, because it's rejection and it starts to trigger all of that inner child stuff. So hazard of the job, I understood exactly what kind of hellacious domino effect was caused on those couple of days that I could not respond when I was in the chalet and I had no reception. And so she spiraled out and did. Like, have you guys ever had a breakup with somebody where you, like, they don't text you back and then you start like texting and you start getting like crazy and crazier and crazier? Or you've seen a girlfriend that's done that. I've definitely counseled a lot of women like that as well. I've definitely sent a text or two like that myself. But what that is us being able to fill a vacuum. When someone doesn't answer us back, this is another side message, it creates a vacuum. And anytime a space or a vacuum is made, people will fill it. So what happened was she started texting crazy shit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can salvage this. But my little Leo ego myself was like, maybe we're going to cut our losses on this one, because you know what? The universe has brought me this far. Very much Johnny McClurkin. I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy, but I can't believe you brought me this far to leave me. Wealthy client gone today, new client here tomorrow. That is the risk when you are an entrepreneur and for yourself working. However, it is also something you will have to balance when you want to attain any level of mastery. Can you cut losses, and where do you? But the reason that went left the way that it did, guys, isn't because she's just some crazy person. She's not. It's because I offended her very delicate sensibilities and ego. She, in our dynamic, in fact, was the master, especially from her perspective. And she was sprinkling down what she wanted to me. And by being seen as needed by somebody else, and that's a thing for Leos too, just a side message, we don't do triangulation. And even though I wasn't actually triangulating her, it wasn't purposeful, it wasn't narcissistic, it wasn't any of that, it was just honestly like, here's my schedule, homie, here's what's going on, right? Even that, Leos, don't do triangulation. We'll just walk away. So that's what happened, is that I knew we were going to just have to walk away from each other. Because I was like, girl, my life is only going in this direction. I can no longer be your reader because I will not have the kind of time. What is Drake saying? I ain't got the type of time to be playing with you folks. I don't have the time anymore. I need clients that value the time that I offer. I also need clients that understand that my schedule will expand and that I will be wherever I need to be in this entire world that I'm called to be, especially when it is an invitation that is offered to me and it is lucrative as well, and it is about spirituality. Those are the three components, and Monette will appear like Candyman. So that was an important lesson, and I hope you got something from that. My angels told me to keep these at no more than 30 minutes and even shorter if I can, but that's what you need to know. 2929 is an angel number that was just up here, so maybe someone needs to go look that up. The 48 laws of power. First law, never outshine the master. Never outshine the master. And what happens when you do is that you tap into their insecurities and you will be punished. And that's the last thing. I mean, there's so much information, and maybe in the other chapters I will read more in depth if I feel called to, but summarizing it with a story always seems to make it really poignant and stick. And I have stories from you guys too for some of these, because I've been collecting and asking questions and writing emails and all that stuff, so I can't wait to share some of this with you. But remember that first one: if you ever have worked in a corporate America job or any job at all, or anybody has ever felt like they have the one up on you, remember that law. And remember both ends of it. Do it this way, you'll have a fantastic result, another invitation, and be thought of as wonderful and sage. Do it this way, and you will offend and trigger the insecurities of people. Because even though she's brilliant, she still is rife with insecurities, like we all are. And to not be seen as my most special, favoritist client was more than she could bear. And it wasn't that that was the truth. The truth is that I have to diversify and grow, and I have to be my channel's namesake and my mission's namesake on this earth, which is to evolve. And even in our separation, as unfortunate as it was, and maybe unnecessary, I know that it was necessary. Does that make sense? Because it happened. And nothing happens unless it was meant to, even if it feels cataclysmic, even if it doesn't feel fair. But I learned something. I could teach you this. Maybe it happened for this reason specifically. Maybe it happened for her to realize how to self-regulate. See, that's another thing, in a last message I'll leave you with here as a reader and for my readers. You cannot allow codependency to fester in your connections with your clients. I am not always available. I don't do it purposely. It is my schedule. I am booked throughout the week, throughout the days. It just depends. Some days I'm slam busy where I just don't get a break. Some days I do. I have time. I build in time for myself. But what that means is that if you need me right then, there's a premium price that I charge for that. I do have emergency readings and they're more money. But if you need me right then, what I'm teaching every client is, can you internalize this? Can you do some self-reflection and some self-work? Because I want you to grow and evolve with me. I don't want to just have every answer for you. And I don't want, that's why I didn't let somebody do my body, so that I could be their personal like consort to the queen. Like I didn't want that to be my life for a lot of reasons. Like did I want the magical perks of the body done? Sure. But did I want to be owned by somebody? No. And also, did I want to enable somebody so that they were not doing their own intuitive work and deep dives? Absolutely not. That is the thing that really bothered me about that, more than like, will she own me or whatever the case may be. It was, so you're never going to think for yourself. And even if we're doing a reading, people are thinking for themselves, but you can't let people get codependent on you. Does that make sense? Because moments like what just happened with that client happened. It's not bad. It was a teaching moment for both of us. And maybe she'll reflect, maybe she won't, maybe we'll reconnect. Probably not. I'm really good about breakups though. You know, if it happens, whether it's romantic, platonic, or business wise, if we go that direction, I really internalize that it was supposed to happen. And maybe that's a message here for somebody too. Be at peace with the breakup in you. 3322 on the clock right there. Another angel number for you. Be at peace with whatever the breakup is, and know that no amount of spinning the block is going to make it better. We now have had a schism, and now what will happen in the predictive future, were I to reconcile this for whatever reason, there would be micro power struggles. You understand? We both would be in our very Leo ego, and even though I could like genuflect and be demure and take my place, she would challenge me only because the insecurities have already been rifled in her. Does that make sense? And now she sees me as a threat and no longer as a confidant and an advisor. Message. All right, guys. So good sharing energy with you today. I hope that helps. Never outshine the master. The first law of the 48 laws of power. Come back and join me next time and we will continue to evolve together.